The strategic radar platform over the Gulf that underpins American and Israeli air superiority was rendered blind. Let that sink in. This wasn't a jammer, it was an erasure. A critical ANTPY-2 ballistic missile defense radar system valued at $2.7 billion was offline for a critical operational window. We are talking about the core of the region's early warning architecture, the very eyes of the Joint Command. Its advanced X-band frequencies designed to track objects the size of a baseball from thousands of kilometers away simply ceased transmitting actionable data. It went dark not through kinetic impact, but through an unprecedented electronic warfare payload delivered by a variant of the IRGC's Shahed 197 reconnaissance drone. This specific platform was modified not for strike, but for deep signal penetration and disruption, a ghost in the machine designed to specifically target the system's quantum-encrypted data links and internal clock synchronization. The cost of that drone and its bespoke payload less than $2,000. Now understand what this means. Nenjutsen quick. Before we go further, huge thanks for being here. Your support keeps this running. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Hit like turn on notifications. It genuinely helps. Now let's get into it. This is the part no one is saying out loud. The operational window created by the system's temporary incapacitation lasted for precisely 74 minutes. During those 74 minutes, multiple unverified flights of Iranian Quds-class cruise missiles and various loitering munitions transited previously secured air corridors, heading into and out of Yemen and towards undisclosed locations in the Red Sea. These aren't speculative flights. These are confirmed radar tracks from secondary and tertiary passive listening posts that suddenly found themselves operating without the primary high-resolution picture. It means a complete reevaluation of airspace denial is required. It means the $3.2 billion Aegis destroyers operating in the immediate vicinity were effectively reacting to a delayed picture a full 18 to 22 minutes behind the real-time events unfolding around them. That is not a malfunction. That is an operational triumph of asymmetric warfare. Here is what that tells you. And now let me be precise. What we know for a fact is that a critical early warning asset experienced an operational anomaly requiring a full system reboot, and that during this reboot, a significant volume of air traffic transited contested airspace without immediate high-fidelity tracking. We know that Iranian state media celebrated a wave 83 of technological breakthrough against global arrogance without providing specifics naturally. We also know that official U.S. statements referred only to routine maintenance or temporary technical issues, which is the standard playbook for managing an information vacuum. What we don't know, however, is the full extent of the data compromised during that disruption, whether the IRGC gained access to proprietary signal patterns or internal system vulnerabilities. We don't know the precise payload and mission of those Iranian transiting aircraft, or what was delivered or extracted. We don't know the exact timeline for fully patching this vulnerability or the implications for future similar attacks. And critically, we do not know the depth of the strategic intelligence gleaned by the IRGC from this single incident, an intelligence haul that could reshape their targeting matrices for years. Most people think that layered Western air defense is an impregnable digital fortress, a perfect shield of interconnected sensors and interceptors. The reality is that it is a complex, interdependent ecosystem with critical nodes and single points of failure. And here is why that gap is the most dangerous thing happening right now. Western doctrine has become so reliant on technological overmatch, on the idea that superior sensors and computational power will always detect and defeat, that it has forgotten the fundamental principle of war: the enemy gets a vote. The IRGC has shown that by precisely identifying and targeting one specific vulnerability, they can create a temporary vacuum of intelligence and control, rendering billions of dollars of defensive architecture functionally useless for a critical period. This gap fosters a false sense of security, a dangerous complacency that underestimates the ingenuity and persistent focus of an adversary determined to find the crack in the armor. It encourages an almost religious belief in the infallibility of high-tech solutions, even as low-tech or highly specialized asymmetric counters are actively dismantling them. How does a force relying on precision and technological overmatch sustain itself against an enemy that just rewrote the rules of asymmetric engagement? And stay with me. The domino chain of consequences from this single event is already in motion. Enter first domino. The ANTPY-2 system goes dark. This creates a perception of vulnerability, a palpable sense of unease among Allied commanders who previously believed in unblinking eyes over the Strait of Hormuz. The initial cost for Iran was minimal, a few $100,000 in specialized drone development and deployment. The cost to the U.S. side is a $2.7 billion asset momentarily rendered inert, and a multi-million-dollar scramble to identify and patch the exploit. And second domino, the open window. During those 74 minutes, Iranian assets are able to execute sensitive operations that would normally be impossible without detection. This could involve delivering advanced components to proxies moving high-value personnel or conducting critical reconnaissance missions against fixed targets in the Red Sea without the standard level of risk. This direct operational freedom fundamentally shifts the tactical advantage in specific theaters. Third domino, intelligence gain for Iran. The IRGC now possesses an invaluable blueprint of the system's vulnerability. They understand the exact timing of its reboot protocols, the response mechanisms, and potentially the limitations of its backup systems. This intelligence allows them to refine future electronic warfare operations, not just against this specific radar, but potentially against other interconnected systems using similar architecture. This isn't just a tactical win, it's a strategic intelligence coup. Fourth domino, erosion of regional trust. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who depend heavily on this joint early warning architecture, now have a tangible data point proving its fallibility. Their reliance on American defense guarantees is tested. This uncertainty will inevitably lead to increased hedging-seeking alternative security arrangements or even a quieter rapprochement with Tehran to avoid being caught in the crossfire. This is a fracturing of alliances from within. Let me be precise. The region now faces two starkly divergent paths based on how this incident is processed and responded to. And path A, aggressive reassertion. The US and Israel could interpret this as an unacceptable challenge to their regional dominance, demanding an immediate and overwhelming kinetic response to re-establish deterrence. The morning after such a response would see oil prices spiking past $140 a barrel as shipping lanes are severely disrupted and insurance premiums for tankers skyrocket. Gulf states would condemn the escalation privately while publicly urging restraint, fearing their own infrastructure could become targets. The Iranian government would rally its population around the narrative of defending national honor, painting any counterstrike as unprovoked aggression from a weakened adversary. The American president would face a unified Congress demanding a full account of the intelligence failure, but also intense pressure from hawks to demonstrate resolve, risking a wider regional conflagration. The global economy would brace for a severe shock as supply chains buckle. Path B, strategic adaptation and de-escalation. The US and Israel could quietly acknowledge the new reality, the effectiveness of asymmetric disruption, and begin a fundamental reevaluation of their regional posture. The morning after this path would see oil prices stabilize but remain elevated as market sentiment remains cautious. Gulf states would engage in quieter diplomatic efforts, with Tehran attempting to de-escalate tensions and secure their own interests. The Iranian government would declare a victory of resilience, celebrating its ability to challenge the established order without direct military confrontation. The American president would announce a comprehensive review of regional defense architecture and doctrine facing criticism from some factions for perceived weakness, but potentially gaining time to implement more robust and dispersed defenses. This path prioritizes long-term strategic adjustments over immediate gratification and avoids outright war for a fragile peace. And this is the part no one is saying out loud. China is watching this event with intense scrutiny, not merely as a geopolitical chess move, but as an operational blueprint. They are analyzing every detail of the IRGC's electronic warfare methodology, the specifics of the signal disruption, the drone's flight profile, the response time of U.S. assets. This is directly informing their own anti-access area denial A2AD strategies, particularly regarding Taiwan. They are calculating how similar low-cost asymmetric disruptions could be deployed against advanced U.S. and allied sensor grids in the Western Pacific, creating operational windows for their own movements. Beijing is learning how to blind a major power without firing a single bullet. They see a cost-effective method to neutralize multi-billion-dollar assets and investment in future strategic leverage. Now understand what this means. This event carries a chilling echo of the Yom Kippur War's opening salvo, where Egyptian and Syrian forces unleashed a barrage of sophisticated Soviet-supplied SA-2, SA-3, and SA-6 surface-to-air missiles. At the time, Israeli air superiority was considered absolute. These new, integrated air defense systems rendered Israeli air power ineffective for critical initial days, creating a strategic shockwave. Just as those SAM batteries forced a complete reevaluation of air combat doctrine, this IRGC operation demands a paradigm shift in how Western forces perceive and defend against electronic and cyber threats to high-value sensor platforms. It wasn't about kinetic destruction, then it was about denial of access and creating an operational vacuum. It's the same mechanism playing out now. Let me be precise. Consider the asymmetric cost equation here. A single ANTPY-2 radar system costs roughly $2.7 billion to procure, install, and maintain over its operational life. The IRGC's specialized Shahed 197 variant, with its bespoke electronic warfare payload, likely costs under $200,000 per unit to develop and deploy. That is an exchange rate of more than 13,500 to 1. For every one of these advanced radar systems the US or Israel deploys, Iran could theoretically develop and deploy over 13,500 countersystems if they could scale that specific technology. The economic grind of this operational reality is unsustainable. How does a force relying on precision and technological overmatch sustain itself against an enemy that just rewrote the rules of asymmetric engagement? This isn't just about losing a specific radar, it's about validating a whole new doctrine of high-value asset incapacitation at fractional cost. This leaves us with a cold truth. The strategic radar over the Gulf that underpins American and Israeli air superiority was rendered blind. The U.S. and its allies are now left with a deeply unsettling operational reality, a tangible vulnerability exposed by a fraction of the cost of their own defensive architecture. Iran has demonstrated a refined and effective strategy for asymmetric disruption. The gut-wrenching feeling of a fundamental operational paradigm shift is now unavoidable.